Last year, SMU shuts out Memphis 42-0. They do have new coaches. I don't suppose you've watched a great deal of film of last year's game, but from what you've learned from coaches and teammates, how different is their defensive scheme from what SMU saw last year?
Well, just the sole fact that we haven't watched any of last year's game just tells me that it's a lot different. I haven't seen what they did last year at all, even, so I couldn't tell you. What I do know is that they're well coached this year. Their coach is obviously an offensive guy from TCU, but TCU is a very defensive-minded school, so we know they're going to be well coached on defense and do a good job defensively.
Can you give sort of a scouting report, how they like to line up, what they like to do, what their strengths are?
Well, they're a base three-down team, and they really like dropping 8 into coverage. They'll mix up their coverages a little bit, move some guys around in the back end, kind of change it up for offenses in terms of the look they're going to give. And they'll bring some pressure every once in a while, but they like to drop 8 into coverage, and they're not a big pressure team at all.
A couple of your coaches have called them maybe the top defense in Conference USA, but they're giving up 32 points a game, 413 yards a game. What do they do well? What impresses you when you've studied some of them on film?
Well, they're definitely very talented. They have some younger guys that are playing this year. They lost a lot. They lost a few guys to the draft last year, so they have some younger guys playing this year. But they're well coached. They're gonna do what they're coached to do and be in good positions. And so, what that means for us is we have to be sharp. We go out there and execute our game plan and make sure that everyone on the offense is seeing the same thing and that we're on the same page.
You mentioned they like to drop 8 into coverage. Do you really expect a team to drop 8 into coverage when they're facing a back-to-back rushing champion like Zach Line?
Well, you never know. Sometimes that's a coach's identity, and he does what he does what he's going to do. And some obviously you get into the game and you'll see some adjustments, but with a guy like Zach, obviously you have to respect the run. So we'll be ready for whatever they want to do. If that's bring pressure and leave guys in the box, we have playmakers that are able to catch the ball and make some plays with it, and if they're willing to let Zach beat him, I'm sure he'd be glad to see him drop an 8 into coverage and be able to run the ball.
Coach Jones said after your win over Houston that he started calling more aggressive plays at the beginning of the game. He had sort of reined it in the first quarter, I guess partly as you are getting used to the system. Considering that and the fact that Memphis has been outscored a lot in the first quarter, I think it's 45-17, do you expect more aggressive play calling at the beginning of the game again this week?
Well, my job is whatever Coach Jones calls, to move the chains, to keep us on the field, to keep drives moving along, and however that may be, if it's down the field or I think you saw DJ catch a 4-yard out and go for a touchdown last week. So however that may be, my job is to keep us on the field and keep the chains moving.
Memphis opponents have scored 78% of the time when they get inside the red zone. What do you see? What is it about their defense that makes them a little bit susceptible once you get closer to the end zone?
Well, like I said, dropping 8 leaves some places to run the ball, and then just some teams have done a good job of just making plays down there. Simple as that in the passing game. When you drop 8, the windows are tighter, but they play a lot of zone coverage, so you find windows whenever they're not tight in man coverage. You're able to find some windows in there. So like I said, we don't even know exactly what they're going to do to our rushing game, but we've got to be prepared and ready for whatever.
The Memphis defense has 10 sacks so far, 4.5 of which have come from their defensive end, Martin Ifedi, I think I'm saying that right, who has 4.5. Is he particularly talented and dangerous as a pass rusher, or is this a product of the way their system is set up? He happens to be the guy who just happens to spring free.
Well, they're definitely talented up front. Like I said, I think they're a little bit younger guys, but they had a chance to learn from some NFL players the past couple of years, losing some of those guys to the draft. But they do a good job up front. They get some good pressure against Central Florida. So they've done a good job of creating some chances for their ends to get free, even in a 3-man rush, which says they're doing a good job with their ends.
This will be the second time in 3 weeks that you're facing a team that, at least on paper, looks like a team you should be able to go out and beat. Obviously, it didn't go the way you wanted in New Orleans. Do you allow yourself to think about Tulane as sort of a reminder or a wake-up call as you get ready to face a team that, again, on paper, you should be able to go in and beat?
Well, it's in the back of our minds. We understand. I think that's kind of been, maybe something that has been reminded, I guess, to us. Is just, understand that, don't let the record fool you. Any team can beat anyone in college football and in this conference. So we've got to be ready. We understand that. I think the one thing we can learn from the Tulane game is you got to get up for every week. You got to get up for every game, no matter what.
What is your number one concern about the Memphis defense on Saturday?
Well, like I said, they're talented. They're young and talented. They're not playing with a ton of confidence right now, or they haven't been. But we can't give them any room to get confident. So we've got to go out and carry what we did last Thursday into Saturday and continue to do a good job of executing their offense.